We're back here on One, joined with Newsday beat reporter for the New York Yankees, Erik Boland. We really appreciate you taking some time with us on this busy Saturday to talk some Yankees. And I want to start with just kind of a before the season thing. Obviously, you're around the team a ton, and the big news before opening day, before first pitch, was Aaron Judge and the contract or failed contract that the Yankees and him appeared to reach. And I just want to get your sense from being around the team. I'm sure it's not been a distraction, but has it been a conversation? I know Judge has made it very clear that once first pitch, kind of was thrown, he would throw it by the wayside, negotiate at the end of the season. But from your perspective, your vantage point, have you seen this contract, trickle over at all into the season?
Ryan, not at all, to be honest with you. It's one of those things that, players are able to compartmentalize a lot better than we in the media and fans think that they are, and that's whether it's contracts or injuries or anything that's not between the lines. These guys are pretty good at setting those things aside. And if you look at Judge's first week of the season, he looked pretty good at the most part at the plate. Reached base in each of the first 7 games that he played in. Didn't play last night. Got the night off, pinch hit late in the game. But you're not going to see any issues there. Look, there some grumbling maybe in the clubhouse that boy, this is how they treat one of their own, that they couldn't get him signed. He's the face of the franchise. They've made a ton of money off of him. You see all the 99 jerseys in the stands and everything else that's involved with a star player in New York. But in terms of it impacting either Judge or the team for that matter, I don't think that you're going to see that. I do think that it will be interesting to see if this gets into an arbitration hearing, which it looks like it probably will at some point in June. Those can turn pretty nasty, and fans remember the last time the Yankees had a player in an arbitration hearing, and that was Dellin Betances back in 2017. That got ugly and nasty, and Dellin Betances, who in my now 14 years covering the team, I would rank among the most laid back guys that I've covered in that tenure. He was angry after that hearing, and in particular, team president Randy Levine, who for some reason decided to do a touchdown dance after the Yankees beat Betances in that arbitration hearing, and that did not go over well with Betances, who to this day still has some lingering bitterness about that, and it certainly didn't go over well in the clubhouse. Will it get that ugly with Judge in an arbitration hearing? I have no idea. I feel strongly both ways on that. Let me just say one other thing. I'm sorry for the long rambling answer, Ryan, to your first question, because I'm sure you guys have other things you want to get to, but I do think that this was one of those situations with the contract offer that the Yankees made, where they made him a better offer than I thought that they would. I thought they were going to lowball him the way that they did with Robinson Cano a long time ago, where I don't remember exactly what the offer was, but I think it was something like 6-7 years. Maybe there was an 8th year and 175, I believe. And we remember he got well over 200 plus from the Mariners, but that was clearly a low ball offer where they knew there was no chance he was going to take it. I think with Judge, I think they were a little bit more pessimistic than people think that they were in regards to this. But they did think that there was a chance that he would take it given his injury history and what they were offering in terms of the annual average value. I don't have any problem with Judge. I never have any problem with a player thinking that he can make more on the open market or he can get more out of the team. But I think it was a good faith effort by the Yankees to sign him. I don't think they should be necessarily criticized for that. I would criticize them for not signing one of the top shortstops on the market. I said all winter I thought they should have gone hard after Correa. But in regards to this, I think criticism of them as an organization is a bit unfair. And trust me, I'm more than happy to criticize the organization and certain things that they do. I just don't think this one is fair game necessarily. But I also think that Judge is perfectly within his rights to bet on himself, to turn down that contract and see what he could get, either more from the Yankees or on the open market if he gets to free agency.
You just mentioned Carlos Correa. The Yankees made a couple of moves during the offseason, obviously bringing in Donaldson and IKF, but they were linked to so many of these big-name guys. Freeman would have looked great in those pinstripes. There was a lot more. Why weren't they able to get any type of a deal done this offseason?
Well, because they didn't try. And despite some of the reporting, and I'm certainly not going to mention any names or anything like that, but there was so much misinformation and bad information out there during the winter about the Yankees' pursuit of those big name guys. There was no pursuit, for the most part. And certainly when it comes to the shortstop class, they were never heavily or seriously involved in discussions for any of those guys, despite some of the nonsense that you read out there regarding that. And Freddie Freeman, had the price come down significantly, they might have gotten more heavily involved in that one. Their number one priority when it came to first base was trying to get Olson Olson from the A's, who of course obviously ended up replacing Freeman in Atlanta. That was their number one target, but the asking price was astronomical, at least from the Yankees standpoint. The A's wanted either Peraza or Volpe, then two shortstop prospects that you've heard so much about. Yankees weren't willing to budge on either one of them. Not criticizing, that's just what it was. And so they moved to their second priority, which was Anthony Rizzo, who obviously is one of the few guys to get off to a good start at the plate. But otherwise, going into the offseason, their intention never was to bestow one of those big contracts on one of those big ticket free agent items. So, Newsday readers were never misled. I can tell you that. I consistently in the offseason said that those was a long shot at best. And I sometimes, and again, I don't want to be overly critical, but what the hell? There just was a lot of misinformation out there about the Yankees. And I remember reading one thing, how, the Yankees were kept getting linked to Correa. Oh, they're keeping tabs. They're kicking the tires. It's on the radar. The Yankees are laying in the weeds, et cetera, on Correa. And then Correa signs with the Twins. And then the next day I see a report saying, oh, the Yankees were never really involved in Correa, but Trevor Story, they're a finalist for. Well, that wasn't true either. So it's just people just, how can I put this? People have been slow to grasp that George Steinbrenner, who died in 2010, is no longer running the team, that his son Hal doesn't run the team in the same way. He's not cheap. They're going to have a payroll in the range of 250 to $260 million this year when all is said and done. I don't think you can call that cheap. But that said, I would have made a run at Carlos Correa, a real run. I would have opened up backed to use the cliche, backed up the Brinks truck and paid the guy, maybe not what he wanted, but I would have made a real run at him because here's an in his prime shortstop who has played on the biggest stage, has succeeded on the biggest stage, wanted to be a Yankee, told confidence of him that he wanted to be a Yankee, best all-around shortstop in the sport. It's 1A and 1B between him and Francisco Lindor, probably, who would have embraced the big stage, again, wanted to be on the big stage. He's in his prime at age 27. That's the move that I would have made, but it's not my money. And again, despite what was out there, that just was never really a serious consideration for the Yankees.
And I want to get more into what the Yankees did do, because it was bringing in Josh Donaldson. And there's been so much talked about the edge that he brings to a team. Anthony Rizzo as well, full season of him being a World Series champion. Have you noticed, outside of the production, we're still waiting on Donaldson to kind of break through, this change in demeanor around the team, this edge, this presence that he has brought that's been, so talked about with what he can do for a ball club?
Ryan, not really yet. I think that's one of those things that plays out during the long marathon. That's the season. It was interesting that they placed his locker in spring training right near Aaron Judge's, and you saw them talking quite a bit. And he had an impact on Kyle Higashioka during the spring. You saw them talking a lot about hitting strategy and the like, and hitting approach. So Donaldson, you never heard, and I talked to people in the organizations that he had played with previously, you never heard that Donaldson was a bad teammate. I think that was kind of an unfair reputation that he arrived in the Bronx with. But like you mentioned, that there is an edge. He certainly, particularly when things, were going south somewhat with some organizations that he was with, that he could grate people the wrong way. And that's just an uber intensity and an uber competitiveness that he brings to the table. In terms of impacting the Yankees clubhouse, I think that a week into the regular season, you're not going to see that manifest itself yet. And spring training, sorry, it doesn't count because and players will be the first one to tell you that regardless of, the longer I've been doing this, there's certain narratives and cliches that just drive me absolutely crazy. And the import that gets put on spring training. And when I read about, this team or that team is so closely knit and they're so tightly bounded in the spring, and this is one of the best clubhouses that we've ever had. And I'm not just making fun of the Yankees for saying stuff like this. Every organization does it, I think, in the spring. That's because the games don't matter, and everyone for the most part gets along in spring training because unless you're trying to make the team as either a veteran on a minor league contract or a young player trying to prove himself, it's not that spring training that nobody takes it seriously, but there's just no comparison between the games in Grapefruit League in Florida, or the Cactus League in Arizona, and when the lights come on for real on March 31st or April 7th, in this case, this year, you just can't compare. So yeah, every team is close and they do their team bonding things, and they're the closest, team that's ever in the history of that organization. And then the games start for real, and then you really see who the clubhouse leaders are and who has an edge and who's impacting who, et cetera, et cetera. And again, it's just too early to say one way or another with Donaldson. But I don't think there's a real concern because you have strong personalities already in that clubhouse that he could impact it in a negative way. But depending on how the season goes, that can have a big determination on that as well.
We've talked a lot, or before you got on, we talked a lot about the bullpen and everything and how that should be the highlight of the team this year. And one of the lowlights has been Aroldis Chapman. He struggled mightily in his last two outings last night, walking in the game-losing run. Is he going to be the answer in the back end of that pen this year? And if he's not, who should the Yankees be looking towards to take over in the back end?
Well, I think that with Chapman, you can't demote him yet. Demoting a closer a week into the season, it would be silly. And they have gone down that road with him before. I mean, he at one point last year got demoted out of the closer's role. I seem to remember it happening in 2020. I know in 2019, he lost that job for a week or two. So it has happened when he's had some prolonged struggles. I'm just not so sure. His first couple of outings, he looked good. Then the other night, obviously walking the bases loaded, and Michael King came in and saved the day for them. Last night, I think he just sort of, he came in a really tough spot. I think you can question why on the 3-2 pitch he went with a slider, which is not his best pitch. You always say with closers, you win or lose with your best pitch, and that's not his best pitch. It's the 99, 100 mile per hour fastball, sometimes 101. But his velocity was a little bit down last night when he came in, so that's certainly worth following up on and seeing how that goes his next time out. And I think his first fastball last night was 94, 95, did get it up to 99, but clearly the consistency wasn't there. There wasn't his first couple of outings, but I don't think Aroldis Chapman, if you're going over a list of quote issues 1 week into the season, 8 games in, they're 4-4. I think Aroldis Chapman in the back end is pretty low on that list at this point. To answer, Daniel, the second part of your question, I actually asked Aaron Boone pregame yesterday. I said, if Aroldis is down a day, how many guys in that bullpen would you feel comfortable closing with? And he gave kind of a non-answer, but he did say that there any number of guys he'd be comfortable closing with, and I actually think that's accurate because you could throw Chad Green in there, you could throw Loaisiga in there. I think Clay Holmes stuff, what you saw last year and what we've seen early this season, you could see him close. I wouldn't have said last year that Michael King had closer timber, but what we saw the other night, he sure looked it. So, I think Boone actually could go to any number of, 5 or 6 guys besides Chapman that he could be comfortable with closing on a given night. But again, I think it's far too soon to let that horse out of the barn and demote Chapman. If he's struggling at the end of April, you maybe consider a move like that, but not yet.
Erik Boland, Newsday beat reporter for the New York Yankees. We really thank you for taking the time with us, talking some Yankees, ending it on a little tough note there, but we'll see what happens. It's 162 to play, so a ton left. Thanks for coming on the show here this afternoon.
Ryan, Daniel, enjoyed it, and hope to talk to you guys again.
Thank you very much.